Hi everybody, it's Matt Robinson. Welcome to another edition of the Writer's Block. Very special guest, my friend Anne Borow-Lawrence, who started her career as an artist and dancer and then somehow got into human resources and then art and dance therapy. She's been all over the place, explored life, and along the way she developed the kaleidoscope method, which addresses concerns and changes that are a natural part of life and helps people find their artist within to create the masterpiece that is their life. In this new collection of powerful women's stories, The Essence of a Woman, Unleash the Feminine Soul, Anne talks about her journey and the lessons she learned, and we're looking forward to hearing some of those today. Thank you for joining us, Anne.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, dancer, art therapist, human resources, author, briefly take us through the path that got you here.
So I was very fortunate to grow up with a dad who was an artist. So he was an internationally renowned muralist. So I think my childhood, if that's a foundation for people, was very unusual. Where everybody else's dad would go to the office and work, my dad would go to the studio and paint. So I was always exposed to that. And I was one of those little girls that danced around the living room and drove my mother crazy. So at 4, she said, I think we need to get her into dance classes. And that's where my dancing began. And it was just a joyous expression my whole life. And fast forward, one of the things that when I was 17 years old, I took a course. It was an AP course called the Writing Workshop in high school. And everybody who was in my class was on their road to all of the Ivy Leagues. I grew up in Philadelphia. And I loved it. And it was a creative writing class. The problem was I was not the best creative writer. So at 17, I decided writing was not, being an author was never going to be my path.
Wow.
So when I went to college, I did not take writing courses or lit courses. I took dance classes, and I was an art history major, so I immersed myself in the world of dance and visual art. And then I went to grad school in Boston and became an art and dance therapist. And the discipline I studied was called psychodrama, which, as it turns out, is about group therapy and group psychodynamics. I say all of that because how does that all relate? Well, I stopped being a therapist. I decided I didn't want to be spending my life on grants and funding. And then I transitioned, like many of the women of my generation did, into corporate America. And I went into retail and leveraged that and eventually got recruited by a recruiter to develop a whole human resources entity within the healthcare industry. So I took all of my years as a therapist, everything that I knew. And one of the things that I saw in this organization was the mindset of the leaders of the organization. And I declared that I would be someone who would help build organizations where individuals could be fully self-expressed and totally fulfilled and acknowledged every day. And I pivoted from recruitment, and then I moved into organizational development and training.
And is that where the kaleidoscope method came to be born?
Kaleidoscope method came years later.
What are the basic principles?
Basic principles are, if you think about a kaleidoscope, and it was my favorite toy as a child. It doesn't matter what's in the lens, in the little front end of it. So it could be little pebbles, it could be figures, it could be anything. And it's static. But as soon as you turn it, everything transforms. Possibilities emerge. But nothing has changed. And that's the key with transformation, with mindset, which is what I'm all about, is when you change the way you look at things, as Wayne Dyer says, the things you look at change.
Well, it seems like your own life has been a bit of a kaleidoscope with new things being put in the end at all times, but always it seems like you've really made a beautiful image out of all of it.
Thank you. That's really great. Thank you.
I am a writer, but
I know.
To that point though, I mean, as a writing teacher, I always tell my students there's no such thing as a bad writer, because clearly you came around to it and here you are being published. Not only were you published, you were on the NASDAQ billboard with this project?
So I was on the NASDAQ billboard, and this was part of the team that supported the launch of this book. And there is a thought leader who worked with Jody Nylander, who's the publisher, and she's the genius behind this book. And somehow he came up with having this on the NASDAQ billboard. And it was not something, when she invited me to be an author in the book, that one of the promises was that I would end up on the NASDAQ billboard promoting the art of aliveness in my chapter, which is called Discover Your Fountain of Youth, From Myth to Mindset. So it was pretty wild.
How did you find each other? Did you have a prior relationship to this?
So I've known Jody for about 20 years through a women's community. And she always knew I was kind of feisty and creative and fun and energetic, and she's amazing. And she called me, or we had a conversation. She wanted me to go to a retreat she was doing, and I was literally on my way to the airport, and I got a phone call that my flight had been canceled. So forget about going to Boca to go meet Jody and these other authors from whatever other books, and that's really where it started, as an invitation. Did I want to step into being an author?
So with the flight, that trip got canceled, so how did you maintain the connection?
We just stayed connected.
All right.
And she said, and she calls me Annie. Some people call me Annie, some people call me Ann, people call me all different things. But she calls me Annie.
I'm sure they're all polite.
They're all polite, yes, they're all polite. So anyway, she calls me Annie. And she said, you know, I have this book, there's 40 women internationally that are collaborating. And one of the key things is there's 6 different topic areas that cover the essence of a woman. And one of them is mindset. So we really looked together and said, given who I am and how I am in the world, we came up with being in the mindset chapter was my place.
How did you come up with the Fountain of Youth topic as your feature?
So I have a foundational TED Talk, and that's where it started. And it's something, I was doing a course actually 5 years ago, and the 6th month of the program was to do a TED Talk. And that's where it came up. And we live in such an ageist culture, and my myth is to really transform the paradigm about aging. Not only in our country, but globally, but I'm starting here. And I started to do research about the Fountain of Youth and the myth of the Fountain of Youth.
While you were down in Florida with Jody, or?
No, way before. No,
Okay.
when I did my talk.
Okay.
So that's 5 years ago. And you know, that again, we can do lotions and potions, we can do everything that we're told to maintain our aliveness, our lifespan, our longevity. But if our mindset as a place to think from is not in alignment, it doesn't matter. You can meditate from now until the end of time. Go be a Buddha on top of a mountain. Unless your thinking shifts, the practices will not provide the value that one would hope. So it's the myth of the Fountain of Youth that's been around since time immemorial. Drink from the fountain, and your life will transform. I assert it's a lie.
Yeah, you assert, yeah?
I assert it's a lie.
Okay. So what is your answer?
So my answer is, really is creativity. And this is why I love being with you as a creator. That if we have a mindset that we are imbued with the gift of creation, as it says in the Bible, man, woman is created in the image of the Creator. It's not some long-haired, bearded human being or phantom figure on high. We all have that gift. And if we can tap into that, there's practices like meditation and nutrition, and creativity is one of them. But creativity can be as simple as when you go to the supermarket, instead of driving the same path you drive every day to go to the market, put on your GPS, put in a different prompt, go a different way, get lost. That's an act of creativity. So it manifests in a lot of different ways.
And do you credit that with your artistic upbringing, that it still remains an important tenet of your life?
Completely, yeah. And my dad really did live inside of, I always thought because he was a good dad. As I matured, he really was a thinker and a forward thinker and an encourager. And he said, Anne, you can be anybody that you want to be. And then you can have the actions you take and the results that you produce align. But he started with being, not doing.
How did the art of aliveness come up, and what are the basic principles of that?
So the art of aliveness is in alignment with the kaleidoscope method, and there's 5 principles: foundation and beliefs, creativity, happiness, and spirituality. The sixth aspect is create your map, your aliveness plan. And the course that I developed is called The Art of Aliveness, Let Your Spirit Soar. It's based on those 5 principles, and the course starts with everyone making a kaleidoscope. Whether it's out of a toilet paper tube or a paper towel tube, everybody designs a kaleidoscope, and that's where we start. So the course is a combination, I call it neck up and neck down. So it's a hands-on creative course. And then there's intellectual principles. I'm certified in very basic neuroscience from Yale. So I've integrated a lot of neuroscientific thinking and the scientific research about aging and creativity. So that's the art of aliveness. Let your spirit soar.
So do you work only with women, or does your program work better for women?
I work with men and women, and I've been leading I had a corporate career, right, leading to Fortune 500 leaders and creating work environments. It was really organizational development change and culture change. So I have worked through my years with men and women. I think that there is, in this age space, the experience that men go through is different. So my primary target market, as it were, is more women, but men can do the course because we all need it. You know, you're a blossoming man, and to be able, in your lifetime, to have a future that you can envision where you're your most vibrant, incredible self. But I think women suffer more. Women experience more of the challenges of ageism in our culture and feeling irrelevant. And again, this goes back to the chapter in The Fountain of Youth. When women get messaging that unless they go and have cosmetic surgeries or implants or this or that or the other thing, they're no longer attractive. So they don't have an experience of valuing those little lines or wrinkles that are all an expression of the life that they've lived. So that's very much where it's in alignment with the book.
Who were some of the other women that you learned from, interacted with as part of the project? Because how many, you said there are 40 different?
40 women.
What are some of the chapters or the people that stood out most to you?
One of the women I got friendly with is only 32 years old, and she's Latina. So she's Mexican, and she writes about the trials and tribulations of her finances, and that she married someone who then decided that he no longer wanted to be married to her. And how did she navigate the waters of being a legal foreigner in this country, and the challenges, completely different than my story. You know, a lot of the other women talk about emotional development. People I got friendly with are also in the mindset. That's who I tended to gravitate to. Jody talks about health and wellness, and she is the lead person in the book. But it's 40 of us, and it's pretty diverse, and everybody's got a different story that we share.
What were some of the other What are some of the other lessons and ideas that people will encounter in the book?
The topic areas, without going into specific authors, the topic areas are social, financial, emotional, spiritual, mindset, and community. So 40 different women divided by 6 comment on their perspective. And there are other people, especially like in the health chapter, women that have had, I'm 8 years out of a breast lesion and a diagnosis. There are a number of other women, who write about that, other women who write about traumatic divorces. So it's really everything that covers the spectrum of what it is to be a woman in today's world.
Do you see potential for relationships and other projects with some of the women and ideas you've encountered?
Absolutely.
What would be one that really intrigues you and gets you excited as a creative?
So one of the women who I'm friendly with, she's also in the age space. Now, she has a different message. So she's more of a coach on working with women on how to harness their power and how to really fulfill upon their purpose. And she is my contemporary. And then there's another woman who was she's a lead person. She's the person who did the cover of this book. And again, she's another mature woman, and what she found is her creative, artistic self. So she had a whole business career in sales and marketing, and she's the genius that did all of our graphics. So she's another one who I'm in love with, and she's another buddy, because she's an artist. You know, so this is finding ourselves, and I think that's part of the message, you know, is finding ourselves later in life.
Where do you see yourself now on sort of the creative corporate? Is that a constant shift, or have you kind of settled along the continuum there?
No, this is the continuum I'm on now, and I think a lot of the women, you're asking about women in the book, that when we were in our 50s, we realized that we drank the Kool-Aid, and being corporate and the sacrifices that we made in terms of our own relationship to ourselves, our own identity, in order to fit in to a very male-dominant corporate model, the price that we paid was no longer worth it. And when I was 60, part of this transition, when I was 60, my mom was 92, and I'm the youngest. And I have two older brothers who are in Philadelphia with my mom, and they're both doctors, and she needed to transition. And my husband and I raised our hands and said, she can come live with us. And everybody thought we were out of our minds. So that created a whole other trajectory when I had just started my coaching business, and I was working with entrepreneurial and professional women who were like me, who wanted to pivot, start their own businesses, or stay in corporate but have leverage and make more money, have more influence. And we moved my mom to come live with me, and I don't know what I was thinking, that I would become a full-time caregiver of a 92-year-old. And so that's pretty much, after that I just said, you know, this is not the path. And I never had children, so the gift of being able to give back to my mom, and what I said was the gift I could give her would be that the last years of her life, she would know she was seen, she was heard, and she was loved, and that she would soar, and she did. So that gave me the inspiration for all of this, because I have a real story about a 92-year-old who thrived and literally went from nonverbal to we couldn't get her to stop talking in a good way, literally until about a week before she transitioned. So I'm not going back to corporate. Oh, I would. I would go to corporate as a speaker. Okay. So if you think of corporate as nonprofits, and I would even go, I mean, launching a speaking practice and a speaking business with this book into major corporations to bring this message. Because again, I'm still about organizations having environments where people are appreciated. And there's so much going on in today's world. So,
are there plans to keep the band together and do projects together, or is that happening organically?
Some of us, organically.
Just on your own.
Yeah,
okay.
And that was a surprising thing. With the opportunity in New York, there were only about 10 or 12 of us that ended up going. Everyone was invited. So people self-selected. You know, I was one of those people that chose to really be on board. And we went to the United Nations and we celebrated. It was really extraordinary. And I give Jody, who I've acknowledged in the book, I give her credit for her genius and her vision.
What first prompted the idea of the project?
She has a book called Healthopedia, and that was, again, something, I don't even know how many authors she had, I don't remember, but it was her vision about, you know, harnessing the essence of a woman and the people and the women that are part of her sphere. Les Brown is a very important person in her life. So she's somewhat connected to some pretty influential thought leaders. So I think that there were collaborations, and she has a business partner who's a holistic healer. So that's her lane. And then she expanded it.
How do you see doing this project here? You said you loved writing at the beginning. Are you kind of inspired to maybe look down that road again?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have a podcast that's both a Spotify, and I'm expanding the audio part of it, but I have basically an interview channel on YouTube, and it's called The Art of Aliveness with Annie B. And my vision is to have something called The Art of Aliveness Chronicles with Annie B., which will be my solo book. And that will be a synthesis of the interviews that I do. And I interview artists, but not just fine artists. It's like breaking the whole mold about who an artist is. And you and I have talked about that. That, you know, people think, and because I was an art therapist and I worked with kids, they would say, I can't draw a straight line. I'm not creative, I'm not an artist. And I'd say, yes, you are. And then we would bring out the popsicle sticks. And they would build things and say, oh my goodness, I really am creative, I really can. And they were learning challenged and socially challenged. So again, it was a metaphor, and I really want my message to be that people see we're timeless and we're endless for as long as we choose to be.
Well, you said it at the beginning of our interview that you didn't think you were a writer. Now look at where you are. So you know, I guess the underlying message is give yourself a chance to create, and who knows what you can create.
Well, and that's, you know, one of the things that with my, I was very concerned. I don't know if I said about my GPA. So taking this creative writing course, and everybody who was in my class, they're all, you know, we were all honor students. I had great GPA, and this was tanking my GPA. And I decided, the problem was I wanted to write, and I was not a good writer. So I put down my pen and paper until this book opportunity.
Oh, really? Oh, you've been away from
so
it that long.
that's, now what I realized is I design courses. I talk, I mean, everything I do, I write all the time. Being a corporate trainer and a designer, but it's not the same. You're an author. It isn't.
You're an author now. That's why you're here.
And I've been an author. You know, and one of the things
you're an author of your own life, if nothing else.
Well, exactly. And one of the things that, as I thought about, you know, our being together, in 2005, I did a course with T. Harv Eker called the Millionaire Mind Intensive. And it was all about debunking all the myths about being a millionaire and wealth and abundance. And I wrote a Post-it note at the end of the course. And it said, I'm a New York Times best-selling author, #1 on the speaker circuit, highly in demand, making a global difference. I have no idea what the breakthrough was. I don't even remember. But it was on my bathroom window from 2005 until I wrote this chapter. So my biggest message is hold fast to your dreams. Is that expressed? Langston Hughes, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly.
You're clearly well read and a very good writer, I must say.
Thank you.
I mean, you know,
Thank you.
And in great company. The book is absolutely terrific. You know, even as a man, I found some really profound lessons in it. So hopefully, it does well for you, and you know, and you have more connections and more writing. But just, I think the real lesson is just creativity and art, and being an artist is open to definition, and it's really how you define it. As long as you're doing things, that's the art of aliveness. It's when you stop doing or say you can't or you're not good that that life force starts to go away. So it's really been, I mean, the book is absolutely inspirational, and it's to see you this strong after having done so many things and helped so many people is really terrific. So we're very grateful that you could join us on the show, and of course very grateful that you could join us too, and we hope to see you next time on the Writer's Block.